morning, everyone. Hey, everyone got an extra hour, so would you all use that? Stand up with us and sing along this morning.
Sometimes on this journey, I get lost in my mistakes. Looks to me like weakness is a canvas for your strength. And my story isn't over, my story's just begun. Failure, won't you find me? 'Cause that's what my Father does. Failure, won't you find me? 'Cause that's what my Father does. Ooh, lay your burdens down. Ooh, here in the Father's house. Shake your shame at the door. 'Cause it ain't welcome anymore.
Darkness now has ended in the kingdom of light, in the kingdom of light. Forever under your dominion, you're the king of my life, you're the king of my life. Come on, you sing it. You reign above it all.
Amen. Awesome, man. You guys can be seated. Before the band does leave the stage, though, before Zach takes off running, come on over here for a second, dude. So I don't know if you guys know this guy right here. He's our resident chest hair shower over on this side of the stage. I don't know. It's not today. You cleaned it up a little bit. But Zach has been playing consistently with us just about every Sunday for last 4 years or so. So Zach recently got married this summer, which is exciting, yes. And even more exciting, you guys are expecting, right? And so babies due when? March? Okay. You're not showing yet, but okay, all right. A little. Okay, all right, okay. So March, they got a baby coming. So Zach is actually stepping back from serving with us, taking a break so he can do the whole family thing. But if you're wondering what Zach does, essentially when there's a slow song and you feel like angels are whispering on your neck, that's what Zach is doing over there on the guitar. And then when there's a fast song and you almost feel like you want to break something, that's Zach over on the guitar making that happen. And so he brings his talents, gifts, and abilities to us and serves us through music. And we just, thank you so much, man. Appreciate you. We're gonna miss your lion mane. We're gonna miss your chest hair. We're gonna miss all the things, right? Appreciate you, Zach. Hey, good morning. Yeah, everybody doing all right? Yeah, it's a good day, man. It's cooling off a little bit, starting to feel a little bit more like fall. Listen, I have a few things I want to talk to you about, some housekeeping stuff before we jump into today's message. And the first is this past Friday night, we had our date night, our marriage night here at Orion. This is a picture of that night, man. It was an absolutely awesome evening where couples came together. Rob and Karen Shive shared about how to kind of fight, I guess, how to handle conflict within a relationship. It was so great, okay? If you heard about this and thought, oh, I'm not sure I want to go to that, you need to go to that. Man, who is that good-looking guy on stage? My goodness. Oh, never mind, sorry. My wife and I were there. We kind of like led some games and stuff. It was fun up at the beginning, and then they shared. It was an awesome, awesome evening, and so we just want to celebrate that. Make sure you get the next one, okay? Whenever they say there's a date night, a family night, you guys should come. It was absolutely incredible. Now, in addition to that, we have some more things coming up that you need to be aware of, and one of those is our Faith and Family Night. So we did one of these back in, I think, when did we do this? In September, I believe. The guy came and spoke about digital health and your youth, and it was so amazing. His content was so good that we're like, you know what? We got to run this back. We got to run this again. And so on November 30th, we're doing an online Faith and Family. They're calling it an encore. We're re-showing him speaking in the Troy Auditorium because it was that good. Now they've rated it a PG-13 because he is talking about how to navigate some of the snares and traps and dangers of the digital world with your middle school and high school students. And he's giving you all kinds of tools from like hardware that you can actually buy to just theories and ways to sort of manage and handle and have those conversations. And so it was absolutely life-changing. My wife and I were there. It was incredible. Now I have a 13-year-old. Can you believe that? I have a 13-year-old as of Friday. I'm the father of a teenager. I'm freaking out right now, okay? I instant sweat as soon as I said that. But this is an awesome opportunity. So kensingtonchurch.org/faith and family. It's a great way for you to be resourced in navigating that world with your middle school and high school students. We also have something for the ladies. Can I get, where are my ladies at here today? Okay. Woo, ladies, woo. Yeah, did y'all hear that little roar? Woo. So we have a women's Advent brunch on December 3rd from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., $10 a person. If you want to register for that, kensingtonchurch.org/Orion brunch. It's going to be absolutely incredible. A time for the ladies to get together, hang out, have fun, meet some people, eat some food, learn about Jesus. I mean, it's going to be a good time. I'm telling you, this is the secret sauce. Being involved in these sort of events, the marriage events and the faith and family events and the women's brunches, this is how you connect with people and this is how you do life together. And so we're really, really excited about all the things that we have coming up. Another one is on November 19th, we have these Thanksgiving baskets. Now, I know we've transitioned to a gift card rather than like a turkey and a meal and all that, but you are actually delivering a Thanksgiving bag to them that has some non-perishable supplies in it as well as a gift card. And so the way this works on November 19th, if you want to come and be a driver, we need donations and we need drivers, okay? You can take a picture of that and that'll give you all the information you need, or go to kensingtonchurch.org/Thanksgiving. But you're going to come here on the morning of the 19th. They're going to do sort of a rally thing in here with Craig and Jeremiah from our Clarkston campus. And then we're going to disperse and we're going to go deliver these to the families that are in need. And so this is a cool opportunity for parents to serve with their kids and teenagers and all of that, sort of a family giving back at Thanksgiving. And so if you want to be part of the Thanksgiving baskets here at Kensington that we've been doing for decades now, that's an awesome opportunity. Sign up at kensingtonchurch.org/Thanksgiving. And so let's see, I got 2 more things to talk about, okay? I feel like I'm at the end of a Micro Machines commercial. Do you guys remember those? Where they do the Micro Machines commercial and then the guy at the end would be like, tax and title not included, right? Do you guys remember that? I feel like I'm doing that with announcements. So just kind of roll with me here, okay? I got 2 more. The next one is November 20th. We have an opportunity for you to be baptized. How many of you have been baptized here at Kensington before in the recent past? Yes, absolutely awesome. Baptism is one of my favorite things. Baptisms and midweek are like my 2 favorite things that we do here. It's absolutely incredible. What baptism is, it's an opportunity for you to share outwardly what God is doing inside of you. And so if you've experienced life change, if you're in the process of experiencing transformation as a result of your relationship with Jesus, we want to invite you to be baptized. We want to invite you to celebrate with your faith family. Because the reality is, if you haven't been here for one of these, we have a tank up here in the front. People come, they say, yeah, I'm a believer in Christ. He's changing my life. We're like, awesome. We baptize you in the name of Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. We bring you up out of the water. And when you come out of that water, this whole room erupts like the Lions actually won a football game, right? I mean, we go bananas because it's a celebration. It's like, yes, God is moving and working in that individual's life, and they're sharing that with us, and it's just a great celebration. So if you'd like to be baptized, you can go to kensingtonchurch.org/baptism, and that's happening in just 2 weeks up here on the Orion stage, and so we're really excited about that. And now my final announcement is to the 18 to 29-year-olds. If you're between the ages of 18 and 29, listen, we have a seriously exciting announcement. We are launching an 1829, which is our young adults ministry, here at Orion. Currently, it's only been at Troy. We're offering it here at Orion as well, starting in December, the first week of December. And so it's a gathering where they sit around meals and they have discussions and groups and all the things. It's an awesome opportunity for you to connect with other people in your same phase of life. So if you want to get jump started on that, next weekend they have a retreat. They have the 2022 Young Adult Retreat. They're calling it Rise. And it's actually up at Spring Hill Camps. And so they're gonna have services, they're gonna have fun, they're gonna have groups, they're gonna have food, they're gonna have all the things. And so if you're available next weekend, if you're 18 to 29, we would love for you to sign up. There's still some open spots available there, but the big announcement there is that we're having an 1829 here at Orion that we are super, super pumped about. So I think Drew is gonna be here this service. He'll be out in the lobby afterwards if you wanna connect with him and get some more information about that, but all the info's at the hub. Cool? I mean, we got a lot of cool stuff happening here. A long announcement period is just signs of life happening here at Kensington, and it's exciting. It's a bummer that I got to sit up here and give a Micro Machines commercial, but it's exciting all the information I'm getting to share with you guys, because these are opportunities for you to get plugged in and for you to get connected and for you to do life together. Cool? Cool. All right, so now I want to invite you, if you would, to stand with me, and we're going to crisscross the auditorium. We're going to meet somebody new, shake somebody's hand. Today's Name Tag Sunday. So we wrote what our favorite Thanksgiving food is. I put Hawaiian rolls. Anybody else put Hawaiian rolls? They cover a multitude of sins at Thanksgiving, okay? All right, go ahead, stand up with me, meet somebody new, shake somebody's hand. We'll be back in just a few minutes. How are you guys? Good to see you, sir. How are you? Good to see you. All right, I like the hair, man. That's the vibe. Yeah. What's that? Nice to see you again. Awesome. Hawaiian rolls, that's my move. What's yours? What's yours? Okay, you can't go wrong with that. All right. All right. Hey, listen, man. This is crazy. I'm always ragging on this side of the room for sitting down first, but y'all sat down first today. That's never the case. Is today like a switch up Sunday? Did all of you guys sit over there, sit over there, sit over here? Listen, it's great. I love that where we get to just kind of talk for a minute. Did anyone else pick Hawaiian rolls or no? Am I the only carbivore in the room? Okay, yeah, one back there. Okay, perfect. Beautiful. Listen, I am so excited that you guys are here. Again, my name is Sam Anderson. I'm one of the teaching pastors here at Kensington, and I'm pumped because I get to launch a new series today. We're starting a brand new 4-week series here across all of our campuses that we're calling Table Talks. And the idea is that through the life and ministry of Jesus, he sat in all kinds of tables, reclined with all kinds of people, and just interacted with people in that way. And so sometimes Jesus would invite people to the table. Sometimes Jesus expanded the table. Sometimes Jesus even flipped the tables. And so we're looking at the way that Jesus interacted in these spaces, because in the ancient Middle East, man, the table was like one of the most vulnerable, one of the most intimate places that you could meet with someone. Welcoming someone into your table to eat with you, to dine with you, was very vulnerable. It was a very intimate experience in the Middle East. Not a lot of people were given that privilege or given that opportunity to do that. And so when Jesus did it, it was powerful and it meant something. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna spend the next 4 weeks looking at different ways that he did this. So this week, today, we're gonna look at the messy table and how Jesus steps into the messiness of people, steps into the messiness of relationships and sits at the messy table, and how he kind of navigates all that. Next week, we're gonna look at the Sabbath table, which is a rhythm that God has designed to operate from a place of rest. And so kind of kicking back and relaxing table. And then week 3, we are gonna look at flipping tables and some of the tables that came in and that Jesus came in and flipped and turned over and said, this is not okay to do things this way. And then the 4th week, we're gonna look at the final table. We're going to look at the Passover table, at the communion table, at the Last Supper table. And as we experience Jesus in all these different ways and all these different tables and all these different spaces, we have to consider that maybe he's inviting us to consider who is at our table. Inviting us to consider who are we doing life with and how are we doing life? And does it reflect the way that Jesus is doing life and calls us to do life? And so before we jump into all this that we have today, I do want to take the time and thank those of you who have continually partnered with us through your generosity. I mean, it's because of your consistent giving that Kensington's able to do all the things that we're able to do. Next week, we're going to start a series of videos that go throughout the end of the year called, that kind of highlight some of the things that we're involved with all over the world. It's absolutely incredible. I had the privilege of being in one of them next week, where we're looking at different stories of different ministries locally and regionally and even globally where God is moving and God is working. And all the things that Kensington is able to be a part of is only made possible because of you guys, because of your generosity, your consistent giving, and your partnership in mission. And so we like to take a second every service and just honor those of you who have done that and say thank you. And then we also like to give you the opportunity to join us. If you'd like to join us, you can give, you can text to give, you can give online, you can give on the Kensington app, or you can drop it in the buckets in the back, or there's gonna be buckets that are coming down through here, pass it to one way, pass it back, set it on the floor, right? Each bucket should make 2 passes. That's kind of how it works. We've been doing it a few weeks, so hopefully you guys get it. But again, we like to honor and we like to thank you. Thank you for partnering with us in all of that. And so today we're talking about the messy table. And so how many of you in here have a messy table at your house? Let me see, show of hands. Who has a messy table at their house? The rest of y'all, I don't know if you're telling the truth in church right now. Come on now. I have an extremely messy table at my house. My table is actually pretty big. My table is actually a lot bigger than this one, believe it or not. I have 6 kids, and so we have to have a table that seats 8 people, and not just 8 normal people. 6 of them are little kids, and so they eat like this, right? And they eat like this, and they take ketchup, and they put it over here, and all the things. And so my table is incredibly messy. And on top of that, we're moving right now. So my table has things on it that tables should literally never, ever have on it. I think my tools are in one corner. I think there's some hair stuff on the other corner, and there's just food intermixed throughout. Some of you are grossed out right now, I know. I promise it's not always like that, but my table's pretty messy. My table's pretty big, but my table serves as a lot of different things, and I'm sure yours does too, right? Like my table is an art museum, right? It's a crayon station, it's a marker station. My kids are constantly coloring and drawing and doing things like that. My table serves as almost like a little library. My kids are sitting there reading and they're doing their homework. It's a homework center. What else happens at my table? My table is a Play-Doh station. Anybody else have a Play-Doh station on their table? That's the worst to me. That's probably the worst thing my table is. You know, I'll set down my plate and then I'll pick it up and there's just like Play-Doh and dust and just grossness all underneath it, and it's like, oh gosh, what's happening here? My table is also a Lego station. Anybody use their table for a Lego station and then it falls underneath and my wife's like, hey, take your shoes off, and then I like step on a Lego and want to scream louder than anything ever, and I'm like, I'm just trying to eat my food here, right? Our table is a place where we have Saturday morning pancake breakfasts. We have Sunday afternoon brunches right before the Lions lose, you know? Our table is a place where we have some pretty serious conversations. Our table is a place where we have some pretty silly conversations. It's a place where we sit down at night and there's no electronics and we're just kind of sitting, talking about our day, talking about the school day, talking about our work day, talking about what's going on, what our plans are. Our table is a place where when dinner's over, it typically is, hey, Alexa, play Turn Down for What? Or play Gangnam Style or whatever. And my kids just get up and start dancing like crazy people all around the kitchen, all around the dining room. I mean, the table serves as a lot of different things. My table serves as laundry ground zero. I do the laundry at my house, and so I need something as big as my table to fold all the 8 different stacks and do all the things. And, you know, our table serves as a lot of different things, and it's pretty messy at times. I wish you could see my table right now. Like I said, I'm moving, and so I've been working there this past weekend, and so it's literally like there's a square, enough space for me to get work done where I've just pushed everything to the side and set up my computer. I mean, it's pretty messy. It's pretty wild at times, especially in my family and especially the way we do life. But there's oftentimes, and you might not think this because I'm kind of a fly by the seat of my pants kind of guy, but I would really, oftentimes, I desire a clean table. I desire neat and organized and orderly. I desire it to be free of clutter. I desire it to be, you know, essentially perfect. I would love that, to walk through and be like, man, look at how beautiful that is, how perfect and neat and clean and no problems and no unexpected Play-Doh under my plate or Legos under my feet. I would prefer that oftentimes. But the reality is life is just, it's not always like that. Oftentimes, life is not that way. And when we see Jesus, the way that he sort of lives his life, the paths that he walks, the people that he travels with and does life with, Jesus' life was messy. Jesus' life wasn't clean cut and compartmentalized and perfect. It was messy. And the people that he did life with were messy. And the situations that he stepped into were messy. A lot of the dynamics of his public ministry, all the way to his trial, crucifixion, the whole deal, it was messy. It wasn't necessarily what everyone was expecting. It wasn't clean cut. It wasn't necessarily always organized and exactly what you thought was coming next. Jesus lived a messy life. And if we're gonna follow Jesus in 2022, in the here and now, navigating culture, navigating politics, navigating people, navigating social media, navigating relationship, it's gonna be messy if we're doing it right. If we're doing it right, it's gonna be messy. And so today what I wanna do is I just wanna look at a few illustrations of where Jesus steps into this messiness, where Jesus sort of embraces this messiness. I think Jesus is almost intentional about the messiness. I think he intentionally steps in to some of the messiness that happens. So I want to look at a few illustrations of the type of people that Jesus invites to the table. And so much like today, we find ourselves in a pretty politically charged culture, right? I don't know if you heard, but there's like a vote happening this week. If you didn't, surprise. There's people all over the board on this stuff. There's people arguing, and there's people having yard sign wars, like neighbors and stuff, It's a crazy politically charged time. And for us to think that that's brand new with us, no, that's not the case. It was the same way when Jesus walked the earth. It was a very politically charged time in first century Middle East. You see, you had these two sort of polar extremes on the political scale. You had the zealots and you had the tax collectors. And when we read this and you just kind of skim through, not knowing sort of the background and the context of it, you just think tax collector, cool, someone that works for the government. Zealot, cool, someone who's zealous and excited about life, but that's not the case. You see, when Jesus is calling his disciples in Matthew chapter 10, verses 3 and 4, this is crazy. He calls all these different guys. He calls some fishermen. He calls this ragtag group of people together. But two of them in particular are identified as a tax collector and a zealot. He calls Matthew, the tax collector, says, come follow me. And then he calls Simon, the zealot. And he says, hey, come follow me. Now this is crazy. Think about the humanity of this. I think this is wild because here's the deal. The tax collectors, they were the furthest right wing of Jewish politics in that day. The tax collectors were at the end of the spectrum and the right wing of Jewish politics in that day. Big government should have more control, the whole deal, right? They were all the way over there. And then you have the zealots who were the farthest left wing of Jewish politics. Down with the man, no, we're not paying taxes, no, we're not doing all this, freedom and liberty, all the things, right? Like polar opposites of the two. So imagine when Jesus is calling his inner disciples, right? Jesus had hundreds, if not thousands of disciples that followed him, that traveled with him, all of that. And what's really awesome, and a side note here, is that he had a lot of women disciples, and nobody in the first century had female disciples. And so Jesus was like cutting edge on that, which is also what shapes a lot of our theology around women and women in leadership and women speaking and all of that, which is really, really cool because this is the way Jesus operated his ministry as well. And so of these hundreds of disciples, Jesus decides that I need a group of 12. I need an inner circle in my larger group of disciples. And so when he starts calling people, I can only imagine the other disciples. Think of the humanity of this. When the other disciples are there and like, oh yeah, man, what do you do? I'm a fisherman. What do you do? I'm also a fisherman. Me and my brother, yeah, we're called the sons of thunder, man. We're gonna put the heat on people. That kind of thing. They're all kind of bantering back and forth. And then Jesus walks by the tax collector booth. And Jesus walks over to Matthew and he's like, hey man, come follow me. I bet all the other guys are like, oh dude, can you believe you just asked that guy? That's the guy that's got the flag in his yard from 4 years ago, that's got it plastered all over his car and all over Facebook and everywhere. That's that guy, can you believe it? He asked him to be part of the crew? And so they walk along and then he finds Simon, the zealot. And he goes, hey, come follow me. Now, can you imagine the guys then? Oh my gosh, that's the guy that's like at all the protests and doing all the, can you believe he actually invited him to be part of him? And then you got Matthew, and then you got Simon. This is gonna be fireworks. And the Sons of Thunder are like, sweet, this is gonna be awesome. But can you imagine the dynamic there? Guys, that's messy. He's taking two political polar opposites and putting them in the same inner circle. Think about the amount of time that these guys spent together. This was such a heated relationship and such a heated debate. The zealots despised the tax collectors even more than they despised the Romans. They despised the government and the Romans for the oppression, but they despised the tax collectors even more because here's the deal. What the tax collectors would do, these were other Jews. These were Jews employed by the government. The government would set taxes, and then these tax collectors, they would hike up the taxes on their own people to skim off the top to line their own pockets. So they were getting wealthy by oppressing their own people. And so the tax collectors to the zealots were the worst of the worst, to the point all the way to the end that where zealots were known to set up assassinations of tax collectors. Like this was a bitter rivalry, a bitter war that was happening between these two political groups who are on the very ends of their political social spectrums. So can you imagine Matthew the tax collector and Simon the zealot are now doing ministry together? Matthew the tax collector and Simon the zealot are now eating together, traveling together, sleeping in the same spaces, right? Asking Jesus questions together, listening to Jesus' teachings together, chilling out at night by the fire together. Can you imagine some of those conversations that took place? I mean, think about the humanity of it, honestly. You have a tax collector, you have a zealot, and then you have a bunch of ragtag fishermen. They're like some rough and burly dudes. Think about those fireside conversations. That's messy. That's super messy. But just a side note, what I think is really cool is that the scriptures don't record any bickering between the two. Scriptures don't record anything having to do with Matthew the tax collector and Simon the zealot bringing their political parties into things, which I think is a gentle reminder that our allegiance to the kingdom of God supersedes any sort of political bend that we have, and that any politics are broken compared to the kingdom of heaven, and that Jesus supersedes all of that. So Matthew and Simon, when they met Jesus, yeah, they were part of staunch political parties, but they let that stuff fall to the wayside when they met Jesus, because Jesus reigned supreme over all of it. Just a nice little side note there for you. You can send your upset emails to craig.mcglasson@kensingtonchurch.org. I would love to hear from you. But the reality is, Jesus is setting up his inner circle, and he invites the messy. He invites the messy. He invites the tension. He invites the polar opposites to come together and to serve with him and to live with him and all these things. Life, guys, is messy. Ministry can be messy. Following Jesus can be messy. And Jesus exemplified that just in the choosing of his disciples. And that's just the beginning. That's not even counting all the messy situations that Jesus steps into in his ministry as he's traveling. One of those is when him and his crew were traveling to Jericho. They were traveling to Jericho, which is a wealthy city, and they're coming through there, and they meet this guy named Zacchaeus. How many of you have heard the story of Zacchaeus? How many of you sang the song of Zacchaeus, right? Zacchaeus was a wee little man, and a wee little man was he. Huh? He climbed up, sycamore tree for the Lord he wanted to see. Y'all have heard that, right? Okay, how many of you have heard that before? I'm not making that up off rip. Okay, beautiful, right? And then there's some middle part that I don't remember, but he sees Zacchaeus in the tree and he says, Zacchaeus, you come down, because I'm going to your house today, because I'm going to your house today. Yeah, kids' church, is that a throwback for you? It's a throwback for me. So maybe you've heard the story of Zacchaeus, but it's in Luke chapter 19, starting in verse 1. And it says this, it's talking about Jesus. It says, he entered Jericho and was passing through. And behold, there was a man named Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was rich. He was a chief tax collector, meaning he was the best of the best, or according to your perspective, he was the worst of the worst. But he was a top dog tax collector, and he was rich. How was he rich? By lining his pockets by oppressing his own people. Okay? He was a chief tax collector and he was rich, starting in verse 3. And he was seeking to see who Jesus was. But on account of the crowd, he could not, because he was small in stature. So he ran ahead and climbed up into a sycamore tree to see him, for he was about to pass that way. And so Zacchaeus hears about Jesus coming, because by this point, Jesus has a reputation. This is the traveling rabbi. This is the guy that's healing people. This is the guy that's performing miracles. This is the guy that has all these great teachings and is teaching unity and joy and peace and love and all these different things. And it's upside down from everything we've ever heard before. And all these people are following him. And Zacchaeus hears he's coming to Jericho. I want to see this guy. But Zacchaeus was a wee little man. So he had to run ahead, and he climbed up into a tree because he knew Jesus was going to walk by that way. And so he's sitting there waiting in the tree. And in verse 5, and when Jesus came to the place, he looked up and said to him, now hang on a second. Imagine this. Bring the humanity into the story again. Remember, this is not just a story. These are people. So Zacchaeus, he knows what he's doing. He knows who he is. He knows how he's lined his pockets. He knows how he's amassed his wealth. He gets it, but he hears Jesus is coming. And so he runs ahead, he climbs up in the tree. Think about the anticipation that he has. Man, I want to see this guy. I want to see what this guy's all about. I've heard the buzz, I've heard all the things. This is crazy. So he goes and he climbs up in the tree and he's sitting there and he's waiting and he's waiting and he's waiting. He's like, oh my gosh, there he is. And there's this whole crowd of people walking through Jericho with him. And then Jesus gets right in front of where he is at the sycamore tree. Can you imagine his heart racing, his palms sweating, sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, what's happening? And then it says, and Jesus came to the place and he looked up and he said to him, Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, for I must stay at your house today. what? Zacchaeus is in the tree. He's probably like, he's like, yeah, dude, you're the only one in the tree. But Jesus looks up and he's like, Zacchaeus, calls him by name. Says, come down, I'm coming to your house. Again, the most intimate, vulnerable space that people can have relationship in the early Middle East was around the table in their house. It says in verse 6, so he hurried and came down and received him joyfully. And when he saw it, and when they saw it, they all grumbled. The infamous they. The infamous they. When they saw it, it says they all grumbled. You know who they is? It's the church folk. You know who they is? It's the religious leaders. You know who they is? It's the naysayers in the culture people that are saying, oh my gosh, why is Jesus hanging out with him? Why is Jesus doing that? Why would Jesus spend time with Zacchaeus? Because you see, Jericho was a wealthy place. There were so many people that Jesus could have met with. Jesus could have come into town and said, I need to hang out with the governor. I need to hang out with the law enforcement. I need to hang out with the chief of police. I need to hang out with the mayor. Put me in charge. Let me hang out with whoever's in charge. The most important person making all the policies and all the decisions, let me hang out with them. He could have come in and said, let me meet with the richest people. Let me meet with the biggest donors, the ones that are making my ministry happen. Let me meet with them and give them preferential treatment and time with me. Let me do that. No, you know what he does? He picks the tax collector with a Napoleon complex. And he says, I'm going to your house. I'm spending time with you. You want to talk about a messy table? You want to talk about stepping into messy situations with messy people? It says that Zacchaeus received him joyfully. And when they saw it, they all grumbled. All the people were like, I can't believe he's doing that. They said, he has gone in to be the guest of a man who is a sinner. And Zacchaeus stood and said to the Lord, behold, Lord, the half of my goods I have, I give to the poor. And if I have defrauded anyone, because he has defrauded everyone, of anything, I restore it fourfold. Zacchaeus goes and hangs out with Jesus. Jesus just, boom, impacts and changes his life instantly. And he says, I'm gonna give it all back. I'm gonna make it all right. But everybody on the outside was looking in going, I can't believe Jesus is doing that. Why would he do that? That's messy. That's not neat. That's not clean cut. That's not what he's supposed to do. That's not where he's supposed to be. He's supposed to be with the big wigs and the heavy hitters and all of that. Why is he hanging out with this guy? But that's what Jesus does. He steps into the messy. He invites the messy to the table. Remember Matthew, the tax collector we just talked about, one of the disciples of Jesus? Well, I love what happens right after he recruits Matthew. Because it begs the question, why does Jesus do this? Why does Jesus step into these situations? Why does Jesus bring a tax collector and a zealot to both serve together? Why? He doesn't have to do that. He doesn't have to go to Zacchaeus' house and sit with the sinners and do all that. He doesn't have to do that. Nobody's making him do that. Nobody's gonna give him a negative checkpoint for not doing that. Why does he do that? Well, I think we get clarity into that when he calls Matthew in Matthew chapter 9, verses 9 through 13. This is when he walks by to call Matthew. Remember, the disciples are kind of there, and he's recruiting his inner circle. This is where he grabs Matthew, and it says this in verse 9. As Jesus passed from there, he saw a man called Matthew sitting at the tax booth. And he said to him, follow me. And he rose and followed him. I love that. Jesus just walks by and says, come, follow me. He doesn't say, okay, hold on, let me make sure all my appointments are covered for the afternoon. Let me make sure this is taken care of, and my dog's fed, and let's circle back. I'll meet you here about 4. He says, hey, come follow me. And it says, boom, and he arose and followed him. And as Jesus reclined at table in the house, behold. So what happens? He says, come follow me, and then what do? They go straight to a table and start to have a meal, and that says, let's get vulnerable, let's get intimate, let's talk through some things, right? As Jesus reclined at the table in the house, behold, many tax collectors and sinners came and were reclining with Jesus and his disciples. So Jesus gets Matthew, he says, listen, go get all your friends, all the ones from the dark corners, the dark alleys that are oppressing, that are doing all these wrong things, bring them all in. We got a big old table. It's a messy table, but it's a big old table, and you're welcome. They're welcome. You and all your junk, come on to the table. That's essentially what Jesus is saying to Matthew. He's saying, go get all your guys, let's do this. And Jesus reclined at the table in the house. Behold, many tax collectors and sinners came and were reclining with Jesus and his disciples. Man, I love that picture. Imagine that. All the deplorables. All the ones that the church is like, no, 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 no. All the ones that we're like, no, 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 no. Jesus is like, yeah, come on. I love the picture of Jesus reclining at the table with these individuals. And then in verse 11, and when the Pharisees saw this, when the church people saw this, let's read this correctly. When the church people saw this, they said to his disciples, why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners? Why is he doing this? He's supposed to be like the Messiah. He's supposed to be like holy and God and this rabbi and, set apart. Why is he hanging out with these kind of people? Why is he doing this kind of thing? And here's the deal, Jesus overheard. Jesus heard these guys. He's like, oh, hang on. Here, hold my water. Hold my water. And he gets up and he says this. Those who are well have no need for a physician. Again, addressing the church folk. Those who are well have no need for a physician, but those who are sick. Go and learn what this means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice, for I came not to call the righteous, but sinners. Jesus comes at them and says, listen, I'm here for the mess. I'm here for the messy people. I'm here for the messy backgrounds. I'm here for the messy stories. I'm here for the messy theology. I'm here for the messy doubtfulness. I'm here for the messy questions. I'm here for the messy uncertainty. I'm here for the mess. That's why I came. That's what I'm about. I'm about inviting messy people to a messy table to do life together. That's what Jesus is saying. We see this time and time again throughout his ministry. Jesus reclined at the table with the ragtag, misfit, ostracized, rejected, outcast. And what's crazy is they're the ones that the church especially pushed away. First century church. They're the ones that said, no, you have no place here. And Jesus says, yes, you have a place here. You see, the kingdom of God, this is beautiful. The kingdom of God offers messy people with a messy past, with messy theology, with messy situations all around them. The kingdom of God offers them a seat at the table. The kingdom of God offers them a place to grow, a place to doubt, a place to search. The kingdom of God offers them a place to discover. And so then the challenge is, how do we embrace this mess? Because we're in a mess. Our country's in a mess. Our culture's in a mess. There's messiness all around us. There's messy people all around us. There's messy situations, messy issues. There's messiness all around us. How do we embrace the mess? How do we live in that messy tension like Jesus lived in the messy tension? How do we invite messy relationships? How do we invite messy situations? How do we invite messy people into our lives, into our table? Ultimately in the goal to connect them to the table of Jesus and relationship with him. But how do we do this? How do we step into this? Maybe you're in here this morning and maybe it's you. Maybe you're the one dealing with the mess. Maybe you're the messy one. And maybe you've allowed that messiness to disqualify you from thinking you're welcome at the table of Jesus. Maybe you've talked yourself out of feeling any sort of qualifications. Well, Sam, you don't know what I've been through. Sam, you don't know what I've done. Sam, you don't know the decisions that I've made. You don't know what I did last week. You don't know what I did last night. You don't know what I did this morning on the way here. There's no way I could be welcome at the table of Jesus. There's no way that he would forgive me. There's no way that he would accept me, that he would love me. There's no way. We take this messiness that is our life and we use it to disqualify ourselves from the love, grace, and acceptance of Jesus. And when we look at the life of Jesus, that's not the way that it went. He invited the messy people, the messy situations, the messy past, the messy backgrounds, the messy theology, the messy everything. And he said, come, Zacchaeus, I'm coming to your house today, and go get all your friends because it's going down. And so if that's you this morning, you're allowing the messiness of your life to sort of internally disqualify you from being at the table of Jesus. Listen, I want to invite you to come to the table because the Father is standing there with his arms wide open. And he's saying, come on, bring it in. But I can't, but I did. Just come on, just bring it in. But you don't know. Just come on, bring it in. There you go. You're invited. You're invited to the messy table that Jesus sits at and waits for you to come. You're invited. Maybe you're in here this morning and it's someone that's in proximity to you. Maybe it's a family member that's a wreck. Maybe it's someone at your work that's in the middle of the mess. Maybe it's someone that you're an acquaintance with, someone in your life that's in proximity to you that you say, man, that's messy. That's messy. And you've just maybe even subconsciously you've kind of avoided that mess. My life's crazy enough. I can't deal with their drama too, right? I can't step into their mess. They got their own thing going. If they want to be a train wreck, they can be a train wreck. My challenge for all of us who have those kind of people in our lives, I would challenge us to invite them to the table. Welcome them and their mess to the table, to our table, to relationship. Ultimately to connect them to the table of Jesus, but it starts with connection with us. And so I would invite you to step into their mess and invite them to the table. Some of us in the room were like, well, I don't feel like I'm a mess and I don't feel like I know anybody in my life that's a mess. If that's the case, chances are you may be the mess, you just don't know it, but we're gonna skirt right past that. But some of us, honestly, we may have insulated ourselves from a lot of mess, Been in the church a long time, and it hasn't been intentional, but now, all of our friends are from church, and all of our, personal conversations are with people from our small group and the people that we serve with, and, my kids' friends go to youth group, and they go to a Christian school, and it's very insulated, and there might not be as many messes available to you, and if that's you, I want to invite you to pray a very specific prayer this morning, but you got to mean it before you pray it. But maybe you need to ask God to send you a Zacchaeus. Maybe you need to ask God, say, God, send me a Zacchaeus so I can invite them to the table. But if you pray that, you better mean it, because it's not going to be rainbows, unicorns, and butterflies. It's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult, because a mess is messy. And when you're in a mess, you get messy. And so you got to be ready for that. But maybe some of you need to pray the prayer, God, send me a Zacchaeus. Help me invite someone into my table so that I can ultimately connect them to your table. But here's the deal. When Jesus is walking through his crew through Jericho, he didn't have his head down. Jesus didn't have his head down walking through like this, because if he did, he would have never seen Zacchaeus, who was up in a tree. If we're gonna look for a Zacchaeus, we gotta come with our eyes up. We gotta be looking for ways that we can help and step into people's mess. We need to be cognitively aware when we're at the grocery store, when we're dropping our kids off at the drop-off line, when we're picking our kids up after school, having playground conversations with the other parents, when we're at the bank teller and we see that maybe she's been crying earlier in the morning. It's having eyes that are looking in the trees, looking for the Zacchaeuses that God is placing in our life that we can invite with their mess to the table to connect them to Jesus. So we can't just pray this prayer and say, God, why haven't you sent anyone, and walk through life like this? If we're saying, God, I want to impact somebody, I want to step into the mess, I want to invite people to the messy table, we got to have an eyes up to see, and our hearts in a posture that we're ready to step into that. So no matter where you are, as the band is leading us in this next song, I want us to take a moment and to do business with God. If you're in here and you feel like maybe you're in the mess, and you're the messy one, and you feel like you've sort of disqualified yourself, I want you to know we have people that are willing to pray with you. They'll probably be in the back during this last song. And they're wearing little lanyards that say, do you need prayer or whatever? If you want someone to pray with you during this last song, we have people that can do that. And you can go visit the prayer table in the back and say, I'm a mess. And that's okay. You're not disqualified from the table that Jesus wants to bring you to. If you're in here this morning and there's someone in proximity to you that's a mess that maybe you need to step into, maybe during this next song, you literally pull out your phone and you text that person and say, hey, let's get lunch today. Let's get lunch this week. Hey, come on over and watch the Lions lose this afternoon. Let's hang out. But invite them into relationship. Invite them into the mess with you. Maybe you do that right now. But if you're in here this morning and you're saying, God, send me a Zacchaeus, I want you to pray very specifically for God to give you spiritual eyes so that you can see the things that he's placed in your path, ways that you can make a difference and be the hands and feet of Jesus in your sphere of influence. But as they lead this song, listen, we all have some business to do with God this morning. Let's pray together. God, I thank you so very much for your word. I thank you for the truth that it gives us, the guidance that it gives us. I thank you for sending your son who is the full manifestation of you. God, for those of us in here today who are in the middle of the mess, I pray that you send your Holy Spirit to comfort us. That you'd send your Holy Spirit to let us know that we are not disqualified from your love and your grace, your forgiveness. That you are standing there with arms open wide, ready to receive. God, for those of us who have messiness in our proximity, Lord, give us the wisdom to see, but then also the strength and the courage and the audacity to step into that. And God, for those of us who are praying for you to send us a Zacchaeus, to invite to the table, I pray that even now, you'd begin to give us ideas, give us thoughts, give us names, give us places, give us people that you've already placed in our lives that we just haven't seen clearly yet. God, we invite you to do a work in us this morning. We love you, we praise you, we adore you. In Jesus' name, everybody said, amen, amen.
Are you hurting and broken within? Overwhelmed by the weight of your sin? Well, Jesus is calling. Have you come to the end of yourself? Do you thirst for a drink from the well? Oh, Jesus is calling. Oh, is found. He is my light, my strength, my song. This cornerstone, this solid ground, firm through the fiercest drought and storm. What heights around, what depths of peace, when fears are stilled and striving cease. My comforter, my all in all, here in the love of Christ I of the world by darkness slain, then bursting forth in glorious day, up from the grave he rose again. And as he stands in victory, since curse has lost its grip on me, for I am his and he is mine, bought with the precious blood of Christ. No guilt in life, no fear in death. This is the power of Christ in me. From life's first cry till final breath, Jesus commands my destiny. No power of hell, no scheme of man can ever pluck me from his hand till he returns or calls me home. Here in the power of Christ I'll stand. This is the power of Christ in me. You sing it from life's first cry. Jesus commands my destiny. Yes, Jesus commands my destiny.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So again, our hope and our prayer is that you'll step into the mess, that you'll step into the messy and invite them to the table, ultimately aiming to connect them to the table of Jesus. Again, thank you guys so much for being here. So glad you were here. Make sure you give Zach some love, man. The whispering angels and the hardcore leads. I love it. Listen, love you guys. Hopefully you'll join us for the rest of the series. See you guys soon.